it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and we're going to get started on another page here. And we've already done this once for the album, and I was interrupted a little bit by the dog at the very end, but it's a pretty straightforward page. We've got an upper flap and a lower flap and a pocket. And we're going to start, I think, on the bottom. So the bottom flap is 6.5 by 8. So it's the width of the pocket page, 6.5. You're going to score 1/2 inch, so you have a finished 6 by 8 panel, and that is going to get attached to the bottom. And I'm just dry fitting this real quick to make sure that it fits and there's nothing hanging over, and it looks good. Let me double check that one more time. Some days my eyes aren't working so good. I think it's my glasses actually. I'm going to take just a little bit off. Okay, so I took just a tiny sliver off. It looked like it was hanging off this end just a little bit. Okay, make sure your pockets are to the left and right, and this is going to go across the bottom. Just flush with the edge here. Okay, there we go. Nice and tight here on the edges, and that's what I was looking for. That's why I took that little bit off. All right, so now the smaller flap, which is 8 by 4.5, and you're gonna score 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side, is gonna get applied to the top. And I'm gonna do the same thing and take just a tiny sliver off, because it was just a little bit wider than the pocket page. I don't know why that grabbed, but it sure did. So I'm going to trim that by hand. Just got a little bit of a rugged edge. There we go. Nice and clean. Okay, and so this is just going to go flush on the top, and I've turned everything upside down so I could see the edges clearly. It's my design process is to always pull the edge to me rather than try to lean over, for two reasons. One, it's easier for me to see, and the second reason is you don't have to spend half an hour looking at the top of my head, which doesn't help. Okay, and then this pocket is going to go, let me find some contrast sheets here. So we've got this large flap on the bottom coming up, and then this flap from the top coming down, and this pocket's going to go right here. And it's just going to go flush to these corners. And I should give you the measurements. This pocket is 4 by 9. 4 by 9. You're going to score on 3 of the 4 sides to make a pocket. Okay, and so you have a finished design space of 3.5 by 8. And there we go. And that's in. So that is the interactive components for this page, and I'm going to pause for a minute and I'm going to pull in my designer papers and we'll get started decorating it after I straighten up my space a little bit. Hey everybody, I'm back and I've made some choices, and I do still need to do some inking, but I got some of it done. Sorry about that, my dog's being a bit fussy. At any rate, this is going to be the ephemera piece that's going to lay on top of the top flap. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down and get started. So this is the pattern that I chose to go on the bottom, and I'm double checking to see if I need to trim it. It's going to go on the pocket, and it looks pretty good, but I haven't inked it. And this is from the 12 by 12 collection pad, and this is from Patterns and Solids, which is also 12 by 12. Actually, I did half of the ink. I'm halfway there. Let's see. And that looks good. This is what I'm going to use to line the pocket, and it is inked. Okay, the inside pieces I'm pretty sure I haven't covered. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and lay down the inside first because I know the magnet's gonna go on the outside because we've already made one of these. So this is from the Patterns and Solids. There we go. I'm gonna dry fit, make sure it looks good. Yep. And then just like we did on the first one of this design on the flaps, I'm gonna do some color blocking on the inside. Since it's such a large layout, I think it adds a lot of interest if you do color blocking. The front, the cover is broken up just by definition of the flaps. But when you open everything up and see the inside, it can be just overwhelming to have one big solid space. So I like to do my color blocking on the insides of most of my panels. And you'll see that in some of my other designs, but that's my thought process behind it. That looks pretty good. Let's get that burnished into place. Okay, and so here are the pieces that I've decided to go. I think it goes this way, like this and this, and then on the top we're going to do opposites. We're going to do a solid here and the pattern here. So as you can see, you kind of get this alternating. I'm not sure, I can't see if I'm in frame right now, so I was just rocking it back and forth so you can see the whole thing. And I know I need to trim these just a little bit. So I think these are both 4 inches. This is an 8-inch wide panel, so it's exactly 8 inches wide. And I want to have a black border around through the center and around the edges. So I know I need to take off a 1/16 of an inch for each one of these. Now if I was just doing one piece, I'd do an 1/8 of an inch because I'd get a 1/16 inch off each side and I would just move it to the center. But since I'm trimming 2 pieces, I'm going to split that 1/8 in half, so it's a 1/16 2 times. Hopefully that makes sense. And you'll see in a minute when I get it trimmed. Let's see how it looks. And it looks like I didn't go quite enough, so a little bit more. And that should do it. Let's check. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's a little narrow, but you know, it's close enough. I'm afraid if I go any further, I might make it too narrow. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna ink my edges and I'm gonna glue one of these down. Then I'm gonna dry fit the other one, and if I wanna make any last minute adjustments, I'll do it to the one that I haven't glued down. But I feel like I'm about 99% of the way there. So I think the best way to get that last 1% is to get one piece stationary, so get it glued down so that you can maneuver without trying to manage 2 pieces. So I'm gonna get this one down first. Yeah. Directional, so I was just double checking the back side to make sure I had it going the right direction. Okay, burnish that into place. Sorry, I've got some paper buildup here. All right, so this one is going to go here, and I want an even black border all the way around it. And I can see that it's not quite even, so I need to take off just a tiny bit, and it looks like I even need to do it at a slight angle. So color blocking is tedious, but it's really, to me, it's worth the effort. Okay, let's see how it looks now. Yep, there it is. Okay. So when I just need to knock off a little edge, I just do a tick mark here. I lay it in my trimmer, and then I put this on the edge flush, and then I twist this into the cut line. So if this white line is my cut line, basically what I do is I hold the tip that I don't want to trim right on the cut line, and then I pull this in until I get to my tick mark, and then I can cut at a slight angle. It's not easy to do, and you can't be pushing against the top of the trimmer to do it. You have to sort of pull it away to get that effect. And if you're cutting really well and everything is a nice, perfect right angle, you should never have to do that. But occasionally, I start with something that's not a square, or it torques in my trimmer, and then I get something that's just a little bit shy of a right angle, and that might cause that. And that's just a way to, although they're not perfectly right angles now, visually it's going to look better than if I tried to just square one and then leave an uneven border. So just some tips of the trade. And typically, if I'm going to, another rule of thumb is, if you have to make one less than a right angle, I did this backwards, I would prefer to do it on the pattern. It's much harder to see whether or not you've got a right angle on a pattern than it is on a solid. So for the flip side, I'm going to do this reverse. I'm going to lay down my solid piece first, and that way if I need to change anything about the trim, I'll be doing it against the pattern, which, like I said, is a lot harder to detect. So we will put down the solid first, because we know we're going to need to trim. Okay, but I know I can start by taking off a 1/16 of an inch like I did the first time. And then I'll probably have to take off just a tiny bit more, but I'll do that after, I think after I lay my solid down. Excuse me. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to ink my edge, and I forgot I want to do it alternate. So my patterns and solids are crisscross from each other. And this is going swimmingly because right now I'm not focused on where I need to put a magnet, which we'll do when we flip it open. Okay, that looks good. Hope everybody's doing good. We are having a fantastic February here in San Diego. It has been so beautiful and warm. It's hard to believe it's still February. It's so warm. That's not quite straight, so I'm going to do that again. I didn't have a straight line on the outside. Much better. Okay, I was just looking for that nice even border. Now, make sure my squids are going the same way on both sides, and they are. Okay, and I think I'm gonna need to trim off another 1/16 of an inch. Let's see how that looks. A little more. Okay, this ought to do it. And it looks good. I need to ink it. And I think we're ready to lay it down. I'll try fit one more time. Okay. Okay, so that's, yes, I was just making sure my patterns are going the right direction. They are. So that's the inside of this page. And now we can focus on the outside. And I am going to do a couple things here. One, I'm going to add this panel, but I'm also going to add this little strip. And I haven't decided if I'm going to add the whole thing or just two ends, because this is going to lay right on top. And then on the inside, we have this brown pattern paper to kind of break up all the blue. And it's going to go right here. And then these fish are going to go right here. So let's go ahead and get the brown paper in, and then we're going to add a magnet. Moving right along. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Janet Mueller. I just saw your Facebook post. Looks like you're having a great time on your craft cruise. It's always fun to see those photos. The weather looks awesome. And let's see, so it is the 3rd week of February, and we are getting ready. We, Scrap and Create, are getting ready to have our craft retreat the end of this month, the 28th, 29th, and March 1st. That's going to be here in Rancho Bernardo, San Diego. And it's always a lot of fun. It's a very small, intimate gathering, usually 25 folks. We like to keep it small because between running the shop and running the channel, that kind of takes up all of our time. But if we didn't actually host a retreat, I don't think we'd ever have time to get away and do one, just for fun. So we're looking forward to that. Oops, I can't do that yet, right? I got to put a magnet down. You guys almost let me do that. I need to stop with the chit chat so I can remember what I'm doing. Okay, I am going to put this low enough that I know that my paper will go over it. And I'm not going to lay this down until, I just saw that wasn't pressed into place, until I get this situated and then this applied to the top, because that's where the second magnet's going to go. And I want to get this all dialed in before I commit to that. So I've chosen this paper, and I am going to use this little strip and use it as a border. And let me see what I've got. So this is just about 4 inches wide, and we know this is 8 inches wide. So really all I need is 2 inches on either side. So I'm trying to decide if I can just use a bit so that I can preserve some of the rest of the strip for some other thing. So let's see. So I need 4 inches, so 2 inches each. Let's see how that looks. See where it breaks it up. Okay. So let's see, is that going to be big enough? Actually, it's too big. So, okay, that's going to work. Seashell, we're going to do that twice. And then I'm gonna wind up tucking this under us slightly, I think. Seashell, seashell. Yeah. Okay. This was the leading edge, and when I say leading edge, it was the leading edge of the border strip. So there's actually a little more space between the edge of the paper and the S than here. So I'm just gonna trim it down to match, just by stacking them and hand trimming. Okay, now they should be exactly the same. They'll go on either side. Yeah, and then we'll place this right on top. And that means I was able to preserve this strip to use someplace else. sorry, my chair got stuck. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and place these first because I may need to trim this down depending on where these wind up. So as usual, we're gonna get the little piece in first and then trim our larger piece to fit. All right. All right. Well, that was a little heavy-handed on the glue, so take some of that back off. Okay, now we're going to do the other side. All right, that looks good. Now I'm gonna take this whole thing and turn it around. So when I apply this, I can get a sense of how far I am from the edge, if I need to trim a little more. And you know what? Oh, it's unbelievable. Can you believe that, guys? It fits perfect. I don't need to trim it at all. So that's awesome. That was just by happenstance because this was a scrap. So I'm glad that worked out. And when I say scrap, I can tell you it is 3 3/8 is what it turned out to be. 3 3/8 in height and 7 7/8 in width, and that made it perfect with this particular border. Okay, now you can see I have this gap here, but not to worry because that's where this is going to go. So let's first apply the ephemera to the black cardstock. Should I do that? Let me think. Yeah, I should. I was thinking about possibly just adding this here and then putting the magnet on the other side here. So that it would be underneath this, which is still an option. But either way, on the flip side, I'm going to wind up putting some designer paper here, and I generally prefer my magnets to be on the inside and not on the outside. So that's what we'll do. But if you didn't want to dress the inside, of this flap, then a way around that would be to go ahead and add this cardstock, add your magnet, and then add your ephemera. Okay, and I can see I've got a small pencil mark here, so that's gone now. All right, so let's see. I need to figure out how low this has to go, and that may need to come up. Yeah, that's too low, so I'm glad I didn't put my mat down yet. I am going to raise this. And it's ugly, I know. There we go. So let's try that again. Okay, enough of that. Okay, using my fat tape because it does soften the edge, and so it was down here, and I'm just gonna raise it a little. Get it a little closer to the edge, and then I don't have to bring my ephemera card down so low. All right. So I know that this magnet has to be about here, so that gives me the point of where I need to actually do my glue. So from here back is where I'll do my glue. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to center this since I can't see all sides at once. Okay. Just putting a little pencil mark here so I can see, so I can go as low as this. Pencil mark, and then I want to center it. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to check 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/4. So I'm going to press it into place. Okay. There we go. And then again, we'll come back and put something on the back of here. I'm not sure what yet. In fact, I don't think I got in here with any scraps, so we'll have to give that some thought. All right, so that is that. Now we're ready to press the magnet into place on the opposite side. And then we can dress this pocket. Ooh, that is super low. I don't think that's going to work for us, guys. Too low. So now I'm going to try it the opposite way. I still didn't get it high enough. So one of the things I just realized is on the first one that I did, the ephemera card goes up and down, not side to side. So I had a little more height to work with. So I'm going to have to raise this even more, which I don't like because it's getting pretty high. It's going to be hard to get the paper to lay down over the edge of it. So if you don't want to do what I'm doing, you can choose an ephemera card that goes up and down instead of horizontal, portrait instead of horizontal. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go the opposite way and use this as my locator and see if I can't make that work. Hopefully it's going to be high enough. I mean low enough on this side, but we'll see. Yeah, I think I can make it work. It's not ideal, but I think I can make it work. Okay. This is one of my favorite patterns in the collection. I just think it's gorgeous. Okay. So I use a very tight border, as y'all knew. I do, it's a 1/16 inch border, which means my designer papers are an 1/8 inch shorter and narrower than the cardstock. Now, if you like a larger border, I mean, you're going to have even more trouble getting this magnet to work given this overlap. So I would definitely recommend using either a portrait or even a large ephemera card. And then the other thing you can do is skip this all together and use a pocket insert to hold it closed, which is the design that I've used before, but I just wanted to do something different in this one. So The other thing would be, like I said, nothing on the cover, and this flap runs short, so you could easily put something in the pocket after the flap is down to hold it in place. It's an alternate design that works well with the pocket layout here. So again, if you do something larger than a 1/16 inch border, I would recommend using a larger ephemera or one that's got this different orientation, so you get more coverage across your pocket. Okay, well that's it. The only thing left is to find a scrap to cover this, and I think I might have something right here. I'm not sure I'm crazy about it. I actually like it this way, make waves. Okay, let's see, is it too, it's not quite wide enough. I've got, those borders are too broad, so this isn't gonna work. It just happened to be a scrap I had handy. So I am going to, well, I'll try one more thing. Another, nope, way too narrow. I'm gonna go away and find something, and I'll cover that in the walkthrough, but I'm not gonna take the time to do that right now. It might be a scrap of this up here to pull this pattern back in. But it's just gonna be something I pull from my scraps and not cut from one of my main sheets, since it's such a small piece. Okay, so there it is one more time. There's the inside, and I'm very much thinking I wanna pull that pattern back in. And just as a reminder, this is a pocket here, and that's that. Okay, we're all done with this page.